For the last decade, bourbon could do no wrong. Prices went up, demand exploded, and bottles that used to sit on shelves disappeared overnight. What was once a $40 bottle became a $400 status symbol, and for a while, it felt like it would never end. But behind the scenes, something changed. Warehouses started filling up. Distilleries quietly slowed production. And the same bottles people used to chase started sitting again. The bourbon boom didn't crash overnight. It's something much more subtle. It's shifting. And if you're paying attention, you can see it happening right now. Bourbon wasn't always this popular. For decades, it was overlooked. In the 1980s and 90s, vodka dominated. Tequila was rising. And bourbon, it was seen as your grandfather's drink. Something you poured, not something you collected. But then, something changed. Around the early 2010s, a cultural shift started taking place. People wanted authenticity, craftsmanship, stories behind what they consumed, and bourbon had all of it. American-made, aging for years, rooted in tradition, and slowly, interest turned into demand. Demand turned into obsession. The internet changed everything. Facebook groups, Reddit, threads, YouTube channels suddenly turned bourbon into a game. People weren't just drinking whiskey anymore. They were hunting it, posting it, trading it, showing it off. And certain bottles became legends. Plantains, Pappy Van Winkle, Weller. Not because they were the best, but because they were the hardest to get. Scarcity created value. But here is the truth. Most people didn't want to admit scarcity wasn't always real. It was controlled. At its peak, bourbon became irrational. People camping outside stores overnight just for a chance at a bottle. Secondary markets exploded. A $100 bottle could sell for $1,000 or more. And for a while, everyone felt like they were winning. Collectors felt smart. Flippers made money. Distilleries expanded aggressively. New warehouses were built. Production ramped up. Barrels were laid down at record levels. Because the assumption was simple, demand would keep going forever. But markets don't move in straight lines, and bourbon is no different. The first signs weren't obvious. You didn't see headlines saying the boom is over. Instead, you saw small changes. Bottles sitting just a little longer. Prices not climbing as fast. More limited releases suddenly appearing. Then, secondary prices started slipping, quietly at first, but consistently. And once that happens, the psychology starts to change. Because hype isn't built on logic, it's built on momentum. And momentum can reverse. Here's where it gets real. Kentucky is currently sitting on millions of aging barrels, far more than ever before in history. During the boom, distilleries bet big. They increased production, expecting future demand to match. But whiskey has a delay. What you produce today won't hit shelves for 4, 6, even 10 years. So now, those decisions are catching up. Barrels are ready. But demand, it's not what it used to be. And that creates pressure because whiskey can age, but it can't sit forever without consequence. The next generation drinks differently. They're less brand loyal, less interested in collecting, and more focused on experience. Some are drinking less alcohol entirely. Others are choosing tequila, ready-to-drink, cocktails, winey, even non-alcoholic options. Bourbon isn't disappearing, but it's no longer the center of attention. And that shift matters more than most people realize, because trends don't need to collapse to become less dominant. So what happens next? This isn't the death of bourbon. It's the reset. Prices stabilize, availability increases, and the focus shifts back to the whiskey itself, not the label, not the hype, not the resale value, just the experience. And ironically, this might be the best thing that could happen to bourbon, because for the first time in years, you don't have to chase it. You can just enjoy it. The bourbon boom didn't end with a crash. It ended with a quiet shift from hype to reality. And the question now isn't, what bottle should you chase? It's, do you actually know what you're drinking?